Elon Musk has been chosen as Time Magazine's Person of the Year, inexplicably, it seems to me. Now, to be fair to Time Magazine, if one wanted to do such a thing, the Person of the Year is not designed to be the best person of the year, quote unquote, simply the most influential. And okay, fine. Let's make that stipulation. But if you read the profile from Time Magazine, it's really difficult to see it as something other than an endorsement and saying that they're the best person of the year, basically. And so it's certainly strange for him to receive that in a year where probably one of the single most talked about things, for good or for bad, depending on where you're reading it, mostly for bad where you're reading it, has been working people. The Great Resignation, workers' refusal to toil in unsafe, underpaid conditions, has been the subject of many an article. There have been a historic number of workers going on strike, historic in modern terms anyways. How many times do we see these types of stuff? How many times do we, just in casual conversation with people, especially who are like brainwashed and have these worms in their brains, basically, saying, nobody wants to work anymore because of government checks or whatever. The workers, their decisions seem to be driving the narrative at least much more in the year 2021 than they have in a very, very, very long time. We've seen nurses, take center stage as we go into year 2 of the pandemic. We've seen teachers take center stage as they stand up against unsafe working conditions and repression of their speech and academic freedom. We've seen, service workers, like I said, take center stage against, anybody who's worked a service job knows how terrible it is and say, no, I'm not going to put up with that. Workers are organizing in the fast food sector for the first time, at least being federally recognized and winning union contracts for the first time in a long time, basically ever. We're seeing manufacturing workers for the first time since globalization and deindustrialization stand up and win and strike and win big. John Deere workers got a 20% raise. They're getting a 20% raise after their strike over the course of the contract. They're getting a 10% raise starting off the bat and then 2 5% raises before the end of the contract, as well as an $8,500 bonus for signing the contract and like $5,000 bonuses every year, something like that. Workers are taking center stage in a way that they simply have not in the public imagination in a very long time. And so for an individual business owner to be the quote-unquote person of the year really is absurd. The award itself, person of the year, it really plays into that sort of capitalist kind of great man mythology, that these great men, these business owners, are better than everybody else. That they have better ideas than everybody else, that they are the ones who are going to lead us into a new era, and that there are saviors, that we shouldn't look to anybody to better our lives except the elites, except these special snowflakes at the top of our society.
And there's a cult of personality that grows around some of these figures, and Musk in particular. Yeah, you have to wonder how much of that's astroturfed. When you get to the level of an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you can afford to have bots and people paid to literally praise you on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Which we have some evidence that that's what happens here. But, it's true. There is something of a cult of personality around figures like him. And like you said, it's sort of the Gilded Age, 19th century style of revering these quote-unquote captains of industry. Don't look towards your neighbors, your community. Don't look towards the potential of the government and state power. We should look towards, these elite saviors. And it's, it is very reminiscent of the Gilded Age era. It seems like in so many ways we are reverting back to that. But I think, as you said, 2021, I hope that we look back on 2021 as a time of great transition and sort of the fracturing of this economic system we've had over the last, about 5 decades or so. Because like you said, workers are coming back into the consciousness as a movement, which is something that has been steadily crushed over the past 5 decades in this neoliberal era of pro-markets, anti-union, globalization. And I think, there's some evidence to show that perhaps that time is coming to an end. There's a lot of work to be done. This is just the early stages of such a change. But, I think, Time Magazine and a lot of the mainstream corporate press is very out of touch with what's happening out in the real world. And this is just another example, frankly.
Oh, yeah. It definitely. The idea that he got where he is because he's some, super special person, as opposed to... look, in the beginning, when he started, no doubt there was a certain amount of work that he did that was probably good. I'm not in that industry, but sure, let's stipulate that he did good work, and even stipulate that he does good work today, and even stipulate that insofar as supervision and administration is a legitimate function of a person, which I think it is. I'm a bit biased because administration is my job. I manage projects, right? I manage multi-million-dollar projects that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, that's my job, and I think you have to have that. I think that administration of funds, administration of workload, keeping tabs on scope, schedule, and cost. These are all important and legitimate functions, especially when you get into big projects, big organizations, big companies, big government agencies, okay? But does that mean that he should be the richest person in the world and single-handedly be able to control the way that industries go, as opposed to having the people that are actually doing the work, the engineers that are actually making these innovations, be compensated for that work, or have the decision-making authority to decide where the industry goes or decide where funds ought to be allocated? Of course not. Of course not. The people that do the work should have the decisions, and he should have decision-making authority to the extent that he actually does work. But to the extent that he simply owns a company that has become more and more successful by virtue of the work that his employees have done,
well, and
that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense for him to have that authority on that basis.
Right. And of course, it's not just the work that his employees have done. There's a fair amount of stock speculation that comes with his wealth in particular.
A fair amount of stock speculation and government subsidization.
Right. So, but what you're touching on, though, I think is such an important point that is so often ignored, especially in the media, and that's the concentration not just of wealth, but of the power that comes with that wealth. And as I mentioned earlier, we've seen this trend over the past 5 decades where not just wealth and income has concentrated, but the power that comes with that. And what that means is that in the year 2021, you look around and you have what amounts to a handful of individuals and corporations that control the vast majority of our political economy. They control employment, resource extraction, resource distribution, the production and distribution of goods and services. And the ability to purchase and lobby and sway government officials that comes with that. That is not a democratic society. No. When you're talking about what amounts to a few hundred people in a country out of 300 million who can single-handedly sway the way in which we live, our material lives every day, right. That is a concentration of power that, we haven't seen in quite some time. We've seen that reversal of the gains we made as a labor movement in the early, the first part of the 20th century. We've seen the gains we made in terms of social services from the state has been steadily eroded to the point now where even among mainstream Democratic Party circles, there's not much belief that state power can be used in a positive way to impact people's material lives.
Support for this program comes from the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 136 out of Central Alabama. Learn more at ibew136.org.